Opinion: Americans want to travel for Thanksgiving, but the flood of COVID-19 cases can't be ignored. Leading up to Thanksgiving, airlines in the United States were still somewhat upbeat about the prospects for the holidays travel season. There had been palpable pent-up demand among consumers to visit friends and family, and what better time than around the holidays to do that? But that outlook has dramatically changed as the 7-day average COVID-19 case count jumped between November 1st and November 15th, and health and government officials warned against Thanksgiving travel and gatherings. Daily deaths from COVID-19 have been reaching levels not seen since the spring. Major U.S. carriers are now seeing rising cancellation and softness in bookings. The demand uptick they were counting on during the holidays is evaporating. With the coronavirus surge, in a best-case scenario, any rise in demand won't be nearly as large as had been anticipated only a couple of weeks ago. Thanksgiving is typically one of the busiest periods of the year for airlines, with a record 31.6 million Americans flying in a day just before and after the holiday in 2019. That amounted to about $8 billion out of $247 billion in total U.S. airline revenue last year. Based on current recovery trends and recent holiday travel increases, Oliver Wyman now projects a 60% to 65% decline in 2020's Thanksgiving travel period over the same 12 days in 2019. Given the uncertainty over new government restrictions and rising case counts, we also see a potential for even more last-minute cancellations and cuts in capacity by airlines. In anticipation of a bump in demand over the Thanksgiving holiday period, the airlines had expanded daily domestic schedules by more than 1,300 flights and 150,000 seats. Low-cost carriers have been particularly aggressive chasing holiday travel and have added to their flights and seats even more than the larger network airlines. It's not as if the optimism was unfounded. Americans really want to travel again, and after 8 months of shutdown, mask wearing and social distancing, pandemic fatigue, and a bottled up desire for normalcy might still push many to visit friends and family around the holidays, despite all the warnings not to. Expectations are for an even greater percentage than usual to opt for the perceived safety of their cars over transportation with strangers. This shouldn't come as a surprise, even though the 7-day average for new case counts is expected to top 180,000 a day by Thanksgiving, according to projections by the Oliver Wyman Pandemic Navigator. Travel by Americans also jumped over the Labor Day weekend, when medical experts expressed similar concerns about the potential spikes in cases as a result of increased mobility and socializing. Until recent surge, personal judgment ahead of government restrictions guidance from the World Health Organization or Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or even the advent of a vaccine has been governing individual decisions on travel. According to Oliver Willman's October travel survey of 400,600 people in 9 countries, the percentage of respondents who thought it was alright to travel was more than 4 times higher than was in May, when we conducted our first survey. At that time, new COVID-19 case numbers were much lower than they are now. Of the American surveys, more than 40% of the respondents had already flown or taken a long train trip since March, when the first U.S. emergency declaration was issued. Most of them were confident in the cleanliness and the safety of air and rail travel, but as health experts would tell prospective travelers, it isn't necessarily the plane ride they worry about as much as the information get-togethers that bring people into close proximity indoors, often without masks. It's hard to assess what the current numbers mean for Christmas week travel. How much worse will the pandemic be by then? At the moment, the outlook is not very bright, with our pandemic navigator projecting the 7-day average of new cases to top 230,000 a day by December 9 in the United States. Well, the virus is unpredictable and the demand remains volatile. Carrier management and restructuring of operating costs, as well as efforts to shore up cash positions, have provided the U.S. airlines more flexibility to deal with surprises. Despite Thanksgiving's restrained travel numbers, there is no doubt people around the world are getting restless. More than a quarter of our survey respondents said they would travel more after travel restrictions are removed. Economy willing, there will be a surge in travel demand at some point. With luck, that surge will coincide with widespread dissemination of a vaccine.